In the opening scene, Will Hunting is at home, reading a book, when his friend Chucky Sullivan comes to pick him up. They leave together and head to MIT, where Professor Gerald sets a challenging problem for the students to solve by the end of the semester. Will, who works at MIT as a janitor, sees the theorem written on a board in the hallway. If anyone solves the problem, their achievement will be published in the MIT newspaper. Will quietly mops the floor. After the students leave, he looks at the questions written on the board with amazement. Will and Chucky go to a bar, and he is feeling cheerful, but Will decides to leave early. He goes home and works on the problem he saw earlier that day. The next day, he continues his cleaning duties while solving the problem on the board in the hallway. Will and Chucky are playing baseball, but Will keeps hitting Chucky because he says Chucky is standing too close to the plate. Chucky mentions going to a bar at Harvard next week, and Will agrees. Meanwhile, Gerald is at an MIT alumni reunion when his students ask him about the person who solved a theorem. He is surprised to see the solution written on the board and asks different students if they know who solved it, but no one comes forward. Later, Will, Chucky, Morgan, and Billy are at a baseball game, and Will recognizes one of the people there as his childhood bully. After a while, they go out to get food. While they are driving, they see Will's bully causing trouble again. They get into a fight with him, and then the police come and take Will away. Gerald walks into his class and sees that there are more students than usual. Everyone is interested in the person who solved the math problem. Gerald asks the mysterious person to come forward, but no one says anything. Afterwards, Will is working on a problem on the board when Gerald sees him. He tells Will he can't write on the board. Will leaves in a hurry. Later, Gerald sees the board and understands that Will is very smart. Will goes to the Harvard bar with his friends as they arranged. Morgan makes fun of him for losing his job as a janitor. Chucky tries to get the attention of two students from Harvard and makes up a story about being in a history class with one of them. A guy named Clark joins them and starts making fun of Chucky for not knowing much about history. Will approaches Clark, joins in and outsmarts Clark by pointing out that he was copying someone else's ideas. Clark tries to insult Will, but he handles the situation well, and Clark gives up. Later, one of the girls Chucky was talking to, Skylar, comes over and chats with Will. She shows that she's interested in Will and gives him her number, and they talk about going out together. Gerald goes to the Buildings and Grounds office to find Will. He's told that Will didn't come to work today. They could call his parole officer because Will got his job through him. Will is in court explaining why he hit a police officer. The judge says he has a history of bad behavior. The judge also mentions that Will lived in different foster homes and was removed from 3 of them because he was severely abused. His charges are not dropped and his bail amount is set at $50,000. Later, he calls Skylar from jail to check on her and asks if they can hang out soon. He meets Gerald, who offers to help him under 2 conditions. He must work more on math and see a therapist. Will doesn't take the therapist part very seriously. He works on math with Gerald and they seem to have a good time. He goes to different therapists but struggles to open up to them. Will constantly underestimates and makes fun of others, refusing to listen to anyone. Eventually, Gerald decides to arrange for Will to meet with Dr. Sean McGuire, an old college friend who is now a therapist. Gerald visits Sean at his workplace, and they catch up on each other's lives since the passing of Sean's wife. Meanwhile, Will confides in Chucky about his probation and upcoming counseling appointments. Gerald convinces Sean to talk to Will because he's really smart and it's worth trying. Gerald also mentions how they both come from South Boston. Sean meets with Will, and he acts relaxed. They talk about books and working out, but Will acts like he's better than everyone else. He starts making fun of a painting in Sean's office and goes on to say mean things about Sean's wife. Sean responds seriously, reminding Will about the boundaries. After Will leaves, Gerald honestly tells Sean that he understands if he doesn't want to see Will again. However, Sean is ready to see him again next week. Sean stays up late, lost in his thoughts. Will and Skylar spend time together. She talks about her schooling and privileged background and shares her plans to study medicine at Stanford after graduating. They enjoy each other's company and have a good time. Will meets Sean as planned, and Sean takes him outside to visit the lake. He told him that he had been thinking about what Will said about his painting, which kept him up at night. He realized that Will is just a kid and doesn't really know what he's talking about. He knows Will has never been out of Boston. If Sean asked him about art, he could talk a lot about artistic literature, but he couldn't explain what it actually felt like in the Sistine Chapel or how beautiful its ceiling was in person. If he talked about women, he could speak a lot, but he never really understood what it's like to feel truly happy with someone. If he was asked about war, he wouldn't know anything about going through it. He doesn't know what real love or loss feels like because he hasn't experienced it. While talking, Sean brings up his wife dying from cancer. He doesn't see Will as a confident man. He just sees a scared kid trying to act tough. Sean thought he could figure out everything about Will's life just by looking at a painting. He knows Will is an orphan who has been through hard times, so he wonders if he can understand Will's life by reading Oliver Twist. He believes he can only understand Will if he's willing to share and talk about his experiences, but he notices that Will is too frightened to open up. Sean leaves, and slowly, everything starts to make sense for Will. That night, Will phones Skylar from a payphone in heavy rain. She answers, but he doesn't speak and hangs up. Later, Will sees Sean for their therapy session, but doesn't say anything and leaves when it's over. Sean realizes that Will only talk when he's ready. Sometime later, Will impresses Gerald by solving mathematical problems better than a knowledgeable man. Finally, Will starts chatting with Sean when he cracks a joke. He proudly talks about going on a date and didn't bother to check in with Skylar after. Sean calls him inexperienced. Will insists he knows what he's doing, saying she's different from other women he's been with. Sean suggests he should call her, but he says he doesn't want to ruin what he has now by getting to know her more, fearing their relationship will become uninteresting. Sean teases him for his attitude, saying that because of it, he'll go through life without really knowing anyone. He brings up his own wife's little quirks that only he knew, and they share a laugh. He tells Will that these small memories are what truly matter, and people choose who they allow into their lives. He reminds Will that neither he nor Skylar are perfect, but they have to figure out if they're perfect for each other, and the only way to find out is by giving it a try. Will wonders if he has ever considered marrying again, but he remains loyal to his deceased wife. Will uses Sean's own words against him, claiming that he will go through life without truly knowing anyone. Will visits Skylar and apologizes for ignoring her. He asks if they can go out again, but Skylar explains that she is busy with university work, as she needs to assign the proton spectrum to ibogamy. Will goes and comes back quickly with the answer to her assignment, saying he couldn't wait until later to spend time with her. They go to a dog race together, where Skylar's dog also participates. Her dog wins. She finds out that Will grew up in South Boston and asks about his experiences growing up there and about his siblings. He says he has 12 big brothers, and Skylar says she wants to meet them. Will asks Sean if he feels bad about meeting his wife, and he says there are good and bad things about it. Will also asks when Sean knew she was the right person for him, and Sean tells him the exact date, showing that he remembers everything well. They first met at a baseball game. Sean talks about the exciting parts of the game, but later admits that he wasn't paying much attention to the game because he was with his future wife. Will teases him for missing out on such an important event. He doesn't feel bad about the time he spent with his wife. Will and Skylar spend time together and share private moments. She asks when she can see where he lives and meet his friends and brothers. He says he will introduce her to them. Chucky, Billy, and Morgan meet up with Will and Skylar. They tell funny stories and talk, but Will still seems unsure about showing Skylar his personal life. Chucky jokes with him, saying that if she saw the place where he lives, she'd leave him like a bad habit. Will manages to convince him to hand over his car keys. Gerald talks to Sean about Will. He suggests that Sean should discuss Will's future with him because he's been getting job offers that match his skills. Sean thinks Will isn't ready yet, and the conversation becomes heated as a conflict arises. Sean wants Will to figure out what he wants to do in life by himself, while Gerald believes he should focus on mathematics. Gerald says he arranged for Will to attend a job meeting, but Will sends Chucky in his place. Chucky acts casually, leaving everyone at the company confused. Skylar asks Will if he has a photographic memory, given his intelligence and how easily he grasps difficult subjects like organic chemistry, even though he only studies it for fun. Will explains that he's just naturally good at studying. Skylar and Will become very affectionate. Later, Skylar asks Will to come with her to California, which makes things serious when Will shows his fear of being left alone. They argue, and Will angrily tells Skylar about his difficult past, admitting that he lied about having brothers and that he was an abused orphan. Skylar tells him she loves him, but he says he doesn't love her, breaking her heart. Tom reminds Will to appreciate Gerald for working hard with him. Gerald gets upset when he asks Will about the job meeting. Will says he had a date and sent Chucky instead, which disappoints Gerald. Will doesn't like having to explain things to people, and Gerald thinks he should be more grateful. Will boasts about how easy the proof is for him, while Gerald struggles with it. He destroys the proof, and Gerald sadly admits that Will has more potential than him, feeling like Will is wasting it. Will attends a meeting for a job at the National Security Agency and cleverly explains why he wouldn't want to work there in detail. When Sean asks Will if he has a soulmate, he says no. As they talk, Will defends the idea that low-paying jobs are not honorable, but Sean believes they are. He asks Will about his future plans, but Will becomes unrealistic again. Sean then tells Will to leave because he can't deal with his foolishness. Will and Skylar have a bittersweet phone conversation before she leaves. She tells him she loves him, but he doesn't say anything. He sits on a bench alone as Skylar leaves for California. Gerald is upset because Will didn't show up for his session with Sean. Meanwhile, Will and Chucky are at the construction site. Chucky helps Will see that he's wasting his potential and not appreciating the intelligence he's been given. Sean and Gerald have a strong argument about Will, with Sean explaining that he's suffered from the fear of abandonment his whole life, leaving him emotionally scarred. Gerald just wants him to focus on math, and Sean gets really mad. They shout and hold a grudge against each other for past mistakes. Then Will comes in and Gerald leaves. Sean talks about sending his file to the judge for review. They discuss their experiences with physical abuse. Sean tells Will he broke up with Skylar. Sean helps Will see that none of what happened was his fault. Then Will breaks down, hugs Sean, and cries a lot. Will takes the bus alone and spends time reflecting. Sean and Will have their last meeting. Will talks about his new job, which he got with help from Gerald. Sean gives Will his phone number and they hug. Will celebrates turning 21, and his friends surprise him with a car they built. Everyone is happy. Gerald visits Sean, and they apologize to each other and move past their issues. Will drives to Sean's house and leaves a note. Chucky and his friends go to pick up Will at his place, but find that he's gone. Chucky is happy that Will has finally stepped out of his comfort zone. Sean reads the message and learns that Will didn't go to work and went to visit Skylar instead, which makes him feel good. Will begins his positive journey to California to begin a new life with Skylar and embrace an uncertain future. Thanks for watching. If you like this, please do like and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this.